Hello, and welcome back to Movie Recap. Today I'm going to show you an Indian epic action film from 2015 called The Story of Bahubali, The Beginning. There will be a spoiler ahead. The film opens with a lady attempting to flee while carrying a baby as two guys pursue her. As she floats in the ocean, she prays to Lord Shiva and bargains for his life in exchange. The infant must survive in order to rise to the kingdom of Bahubali. People then noticed her still holding the youngster aloft. As the guy captures the youngster, she raises her finger and immerses herself in the water. They witness the lifeless bodies of the men who chased her and figure out what occurred. For the first time, they notice a cave leading to the mountain's summit. The gentleman believes it is her sign to bring the baby there. Sang, who is carrying the baby, becomes enraged, says the kid was delivered to her by the river goddess and wants the cave to be closed immediately. Years later, the boy thinks about the mountain's peak and becomes interested in climbing it. So she terrifies him about it in order to keep him from coming up there. Shiva becomes older. For hundreds or thousands of attempts, he perseveres in ascending to the mountain's summit. Meanwhile, his mother follows sage advice and performs the rite by gathering water from the well, the waterfalls, and continually pouring it to have Lord Shiva hear her plea, mostly to prevent his youngster from climbing up. He confronts the sage, much to his chagrin, and shatters Lord Shiva's stone image, shocking everyone. People follow him as he carries the stone all the way to the waterfalls. With surprise, he discovers a wooden mask that has fallen from the sky after they have rejoiced. Then, his mother, Sang, is overjoyed and grateful to the sage for answering her prayers, or addressed. His attention has now been drawn to the wooden mask. Shiva is too intrigued by the wooden mask and its function he unexpectedly created. He continues to finish the picture of a lady by drawing a face on the sand with the wooden mask. Then he dashes for the waterfalls, where a stunning woman awaits him. He then chases her and encounters different obstacles, during which the woman appears and then vanishes. He is always following her, which puts his resolve and endurance to the test. Surprisingly, as he pursues the woman, he eventually reaches the summit of the mountain. In the meantime, he notices a woman named Avantika being pursued by men. He then pursues them, hiding, witnesses them being slaughtered one by one. Avantika notices one of them wearing stunning jewelry. He goes into concealment and follows Avantika and the other men to their hiding area. She then reports to their commander is unaware of the owner of the jewelry because he has gained martyrdom. It irritates their leader when one of their soldiers attempts to cry. He reminds them of their pledge and their responsibilities. Queen Devasana is being held captive. Then they put on their wooden masks and say their oath. Avantika then wonders whether they might enlist Kadapa assistance because he is a decent man. However, the chief believes that Kadapa is a slave to the Maheshmati monarchy and will be unable to assist them. Meanwhile, a guy named Slam is supporting a sword that Kadapa has designed. Refuses. Slam is triggered and challenges him to a sword test instead of a duel. He is astounded by Kadapa and astounded to learn that he is enslaved. He offers to purchase his freedom instead, but Kadapa is a devoted servant, because their words live on, even via his forefathers who swore the oath to serve the throne. The sun paints on the woman's hand in the water that night when she puts it in the water. Avantika rushes to the meeting after smearing a speck of ink without being seen. Avantika is assigned to the queen's rescue plot by the chief. However, the chief observes the artwork on his palm that displays her focus on beauty. He is going to reject her when she interrupts him. Her tears represent her intense desire and merit, and they help the chief sense her sincerity. The scenario depicts a kingdom in which soldiers or warriors torture the populace. Then there's Baladva, the king. The bull suddenly breaks free from his tether and Baladva is being pursued. He battles the bull to demonstrate his might, but as he leaves the area, the bull attacks him. The bull is going to strike again when Kadapa goes towards it, risking his life. Nonetheless, Baladva triumphs and defeats the bull while Kadapa is injured. Baladva, he is praised for his loyalty. In exchange, he allows him to ask for whatever he wants. So, Kadapa intends to free Queen Devasana, who has been imprisoned for 25 years. He granted his request, but in order to be free, he had to kill her. Otherwise, she will be locked up until she dies. Devasena is imprisoned, and the king, Baladva, despises her. He displays his disdain for what, in the past, the queen did, because she chose another man over him, who can't even aid her right now. Declares that Maheshmati has forgotten about the individual. They then abandon her, leaving her sad. Devasena spends the evening picking up the tree branches on the ground. Kadapa then appears, encouraging her to take it in order to be released. But she refuses because she believes her son will go ahead and set her free. Everyone believes her kid has perished, but she refuses to believe it is established. Kadapa unexpectedly triggers her about her maniacal twig picking. She shocks him by telling him that it's a funeral pyre for Baladva. Avantika returned to the river in the meantime to find out who had inked her hand that evening. They had a search strategy for him. In the tree, Avantika is seated without being aware that Bala is following. Then, to stop her, he lets out a snake, keeping her from moving while secretly tattooing her shoulder. The woman then observes her shoulder, which prompts her to start looking for the offender. Shiva is pretending to converse while sitting in front of a flame. Through the wooden mask to Avantika. Avantika attacks her out of nowhere. She spotted him and questioned him about his identity. She can't believe he could do that. Ascend the mountain since it cannot be done. Shiva captures him with his beautiful language. But they carry on their pursuit. Shiva aims to unveil her other personality even though she wants to hurt him. Notice the person wearing the mask. Later, Shiva inspires her when she learns that he went there to look for her and bring the missing wooden mask. They revel in the flow of the musical plays for a time, making love and enjoying themselves. Then it's time to return to reality. Shiva is knocked out by Avantika with a flower before she leaves. Unfortunately, other males catch her and harm her as she is walking. When a second man is nearby, Shiva arrives to save her from being slashed with a knife. While battling the guys, one of them recognizes him and addresses him as Lord, pleading with him for mercy. They hurry and chase after them as he realizes that several men are approaching. When Shiva tosses a large boulder, it triggers a snow avalanche, and several of those soldiers are knocked to the ground. Then he uses a portion of the tree trunk to securely glide down. As the morning rises, Avantika begs for pardon for her actions. Shiva agrees right away and declares their union as lovers with duties. As well, even though he doesn't know her, he makes the same pledge to save Devasana as Avantika does. Shiva arrived at the kingdom where Devasana was kidnapped as promised. The golden statue of the king is being lifted as part of an occasion. Even though she hasn't yet seen her son, Devasana can feel his presence. The slaves can no longer lift the statue since they are too weak to do so. Shiva quickly snatches the rope as the figure is ready to fall on the employees. His power astounded everyone once more. To hoist the object, he grabs the lead and pulls the rope. Statue once more, his face is briefly visible due to the wind. A member of the slave population notices him and says, "Bali." Then, as they pulled the rope, the others followed and cried his name. The king and other people get furious and interested in the name they are cheering. Devasana feels joy as people continue to celebrate his sons. Balaladva. The king is called when hoisting the statue. Shiva is being sought in the meantime by Sang and the people she is concerned with. After removing the idol of Lord Shiva, he vanished. The chief is convinced by Avantika and Shiva to put their faith in them to save Queen Devasana. The actions of the populace earlier continued to disturb the king, Balaladva, as though it were a big deal. Was the Bali statue? They thus ponder what motivated people to do it. Shiva impersonates one of the soldiers in the meantime. The king inquires about who the first to mention Bali's name. Shiva appears when no one recognizes it, but he goes on, pretending to trip and setting the area on fire by mistake. He departs. The king recognizes him just a little and commands them to apprehend him. Devasana is pleased to see his son approaching her as he runs. Numerous warriors are attacking him, yet he is totally committed to saving the queen. He flees using the chariot. It is almost a triumph. Unfortunately, a trap is set to catch them once more. They were being held hostage. It was daybreak. Devasana, his mother, is tormented in his presence. It makes him angry. She responds by fighting back, allowing him to vent his wrath. He is about to murder when Kanap arrives to save the prince. They engage in constant conflict. Then Avantika and the warriors arrive to joyfully greet Devasena. In parallel, the warriors, they sprint towards each other, approaching from side to side, as Devasena pursued from the opposite direction. Sang and their people emerge simultaneously from the midst, horrified by what they see. The prince takes the sword meant for Mahesna as he makes an attempt to flee, chops off the prince's head with Kanapa. Everyone is in a state of shock. This infuriates Kanapa, who rushes towards Shiva but is completely taken aback when he sees his face. He abruptly hails him by the name of Bali, where everyone prostrated themselves one after the other. Then, as a sign of respect, Kanapa places his foot on his head. The following day, Shiva's foster parents are thanked by Kanapa. Shiva senses that something is off. He is really intrigued by himself. Because of a physical impairment, the eldest son of no one was crowned kind. Maheshmati laments the passing of the queen, who was expecting. The kingdom was taken by the oldest son, Sivagami, the bride of Bijaladva. The death of the queen, and they succeeded in saving her son. During the kingdom's lamentation, to overthrow Sivagami, the populace intends to rebel. Meanwhile, the two small boys are carried by Sivagami, who declares that they both have the potential to become the king. They teach the lads over time, observing their talents. It is obvious to them who has greater promise. Along with his physical toughness, Prince Bali has compassion and is reasonable. They still think they are both equally strong, making it more challenging for the queen to make decisions and resolve disputes. Their military secret has been taken by their dependable Sakata. The two princes traveled to their neighboring realms to look for him. I discovered him in a nest of thieves, where murderers and thieves congregated. The other prince then exploited the situation. He relished the occasion, drenched everyone in alcohol, and delighted in the presence of ladies. They were able to locate the man. In an effort to avoid being tormented, he tried to leap off. Bali sought to stop him, but Bala allowed them to fall in order to kill Bali. He abandoned his plan when Kadapa and other men arrived and instead saved Bali. The kingdom that the Sakata had sold their military secrets to was the target of their invasion. The savage kingdom of Kalakya. They carry out their offensive strategy and fend off the adversaries to protect their realm. They utilized the opportunity to assist them in choosing the future king, who would successfully eliminate the enemy's leader. Kadapa observed that the placement of the army. Moreover, Bala benefited from unfair and biased tools. The battle's actual day, the army came together in their positions and performed the ceremony before the conflict began to present the two princes. Bali once again showed his compassion by refusing to present an innocent animal. They met the opposition's leader before the combat began, who, when the queen became enraged, declared his plan if the prince did not kill him. The conflict then started. They all prepared their weapons and took positions for combat. As the vast forces of the adversary approached, Prince Bala flashed a warning sign and blasted them with their long-range guns. Bala then had his chance. He sent the fabric to suffocate and burn the enemy, killing several of them in the process. The adversaries kept moving forward. As they drew near, the two princes got into a fight with rivals. Bali kills each foe one at a time using his power, sword, and arrows. Bala has the benefit of destroying many with a cutting-edge instrument. When they arrived at the chief's place, they noticed that their guys were being utilized as a roadblock. In contrast to Bala, Bali was able to save them while battling the adversaries. They persisted in attacking them, injuring their defenseless populace. The adversaries attacked their defense during this time and raised their flag. The adversaries advanced and murdered several of their soldiers. When Bala gave them his word of encouragement, they were on the verge of giving up hope. Wisdom. He rekindled their will to battle and demonstrated their fury toward the foe. They persisted in attacking the opposition until they at last got to the chief. Bala collapsed on his chariot. Bali struck back at the chief after he had stroked him. He flung the people at the chief while fighting with him. They carried on fighting, nearly killing the chief, dragging him about. This led his followers to withdraw. He was preparing to murder the chief when, in order to take credit for murdering the chief, Bala seized control and stroked him instead. Following that, the queen appointed his son Bala as the military's top commander, while, with the exception of his marriage, Bali was the king, which crushed the populace. It turns out that the queen's choice was impartial. She considered all the factors carefully to see whether Bali qualified as a good man. The flashback was then over. Having learned about the tale, Sang and his folks were astonished to the core and longed to see Bali. Kadapa, however, admits that Bali stabbed himself in the back, both literally and physically. Shiva's identity as the mighty Bahu and long-lost Bali's son was revealed at the conclusion. The powerful and upright man. Meanwhile, Kadapa's unexpected devotion to, even with the kingdom's treachery, did not rest for their people, which, by slaying King Bali, turned him into a servant and made him one of them.